Interview with Congresswoman Katie Porter, who just came out in favor of an impeachment inquiry into President Trump. But first, we're going to talk about Donald Trump's 2020 kickoff rally and what it says about his re-election campaign, Joe Biden's rocky week, and the growing competition between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Also, a new episode of Pod Save the World dropped yesterday. Tommy and Ben talk about the escalation with Iran, some good news out of Hong Kong, and the bizarre story of why Trump has a new Secretary of Defense. Don't miss this week's episode of Hysteria, which also features What a Days, Priyanka Arabindi, who you know and love from our weekly Q&A live streams, and the latest installment in our presidential candidate interview series will drop on Friday. Tommy talked with Beto O'Rourke earlier this week when he was in Los Angeles. Dan, I believe you also have some book news.
I do have some book news. The paperback version of my book, Yes, We Still Can, Politics in the Age of Obama, Twitter, and Trump, is out this week.
Amazing.
Polyprot system is a conditioning unit which allows the dosage and the capping of different products like shower gel, day cream in pots or bottles from the Irmaflex production line. The production supervisor is called by the conditioning unit Polyprot operator, who noticed a deterioration of a three-phase HIPRA power outlet on the electric panel on the back of the system control cabinet. As the elementary intervention
and projecting forward some lessons we can learn from 2018 for 2020. So new content. New content alert in the paperback.
Buried the lead, man. You can't get that. You can't get that kind of content on the pod.
It is a constant topic of discussion back with my publisher.
Buy it for the epilogue, people, for nothing else. Okay, let's get to the news. I'm going to go ahead and say that this was the week where the apocalyptic shit show of a campaign really kicked into high gear. This was it, Dan. It started with the Donald Trump rally in Orlando, Florida on Tuesday night. The president officially filed papers for his re-election the day he was inaugurated and has been holding campaign rallies ever since, but he wants us to believe that the real campaign kickoff was Tuesday night, so let's go with that for now. In a speech that lasted more than an hour, Trump offered no new policies or any sort of real agenda for a second term, and instead alternated between patting himself on the back and painting himself as a victim of an illegal plot against his presidency and his family by the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Robert Mueller, the media, and the deep state, saying, quote, "Our radical Democrat opponents are driven by hatred, prejudice, and rage and want to destroy you, and they want to destroy our country as we know it." It's just all very cheery, very uplifting message from the president. And anyway, as he was saying all of this, the crowd responded with chants of "CNN sucks" and "lock her up." So the more things change, the more they stay the same. Dan, what did you think of the speech? B for substance, A- for style.
Are we doing the Mark Halperin style grade?
Well, yeah, that was the callback.
B- for substance, C for style. Overall grade, A+++. No, we are obviously, for people who are just tuning this podcast, anti-Trump.
Yeah.
So I will try for a minute to take off my partisan hat and analyze the speech from the perspective of a neutral political observer, a pundit, if you will. It was terrible. It was poorly written. It had no actual message. It had no story. The press strategy around it was terrible. The whole thing was terrible. You could not possibly diagram what the goal was, what the message was, what sort of strategic itch it was trying to scratch. It was just a man vomiting narcissistic, conspiracy-laden talking points.
Yeah, look, I know that, the big focus on Stephen Miller, as it should be, is that he is a C-plus Santa Monica fascist, as Lovett calls him. And his behavior, his policy positions, the way he sees the world, his xenophobia, his racism, these are the things we should focus on. But as someone who spent a lot of time in my life as a speechwriter, I just want to say he is, without a doubt, the worst speechwriter to ever write for a president of the United States in my lifetime, by far. End of story. I mean, Michael Gerson wrote for George W. Bush. Did I agree with a lot of what he said? Not really. Fantastic writer. Peggy Noonan. Do I like her columns? I do not. Did she write great speeches for Ronald Reagan? Yes, she did. Stephen Miller he puts together phrases that are the most cliched, garbage, don't make any sense. Like Trump going off the prompter and doing his weird Trump thing where he just vomits up a bunch of words and says crazy shit is better than what is prepared by Stephen Miller. Just putting that out there, and I won't talk about Stephen Miller and speechwriting again. Just needed to say it for the kickoff.
Do you know the Charlie Day meme where he is standing in front of the conspiracy theory board with pieces of paper and pictures and
very well
and yarn everywhere? Yeah, the one I send to Brian all the time when he goes crazy in Slack. I think that Charlie Day meme is basically Stephen Miller's speechwriting process.
It's not a great process, and it doesn't produce a very good speech. My other question, watching that speech, here's how I watched the speech. We all watched it in the office. Our team here, we did some response to the speech on the Pod Save America Twitter feed. The team did a fantastic job, so we're all watching it. I got about halfway through, and then I decided to drive home because I was hungry and needed dinner, and it was getting a little late. And I couldn't believe it was still on when I got home, and it kept going. I was bored by the speech. Is Trump getting boring?
For some people, I think. I mean, if the goal was to get attention, he got attention in the run-up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But other than Fox, this cable networks, which are Trump's lifeblood, turned it off pretty quickly because he was saying nothing new. And, you know this because you had to write Obama's re-election announcement speeches around this time in 2011. And it's a really hard thing to do because, if you propose new ideas, people say, well, why don't you do those? You do those ideas now. You're president of the United States. And
right.
Finding the right balance between talking about yourself and you don't have an opponent yet is all very challenging. But you have to have something new. And Trump had nothing new. He just played all the old hits it was basically Trump on shuffle.
Yeah, I mean, we were a real campaign, as are most presidential re-election campaigns, regardless of party. And I remember we decided to give a speech in the fall of 2011, and then we gave a kickoff speech in December, I believe, of 2011. And the fall speech was in Osawatomie, Kansas. And it was, the site of the new nationalism speech by Teddy Roosevelt, where he talks about breaking up the banks and trust busting and all this kind of stuff. And the reason we picked that location is because Barack Obama decided that he would define the 2012 election as a choice between one vision that just gave tax cuts to the rich and cut regulations and let everyone fend for themselves, or another vision where we took on wealthy special interests and fought for the middle class. And he said the defining issue of this election in this generation is whether people in this country can actually succeed if they work hard. So we had this whole speech set. We decided to try to frame the race. Yeah, we did have some new policies as well, but it was an effort by the president to sort of frame the re-election on his terms with his argument. This was not that. This was not that in any way. I was going to say, let's talk about to the extent there was a message of the speech, which I believe there was buried somewhere in the steaming pile of verbal diarrhea that was an hour-long speech. There was a couple different messages in there. What did you think the message was, or at least the various messages in that speech? What did you think they were, and what was Trump and his team trying to accomplish?
I honestly don't have a fucking clue. It was 500 messages. There was a message, as you point out, about Democrats allowing immigration to destroy America and that MS-13 is going to come kill your family. There was a message about a deep state that was blocking Trump from more progress. There was a message about a great economy and these great accomplishments. And like in a truism in politics, if you have 500 messages, you have 0 messages. And so it really wasn't clear to me. I think to the extent it bespoke a strategy, it was a strategy of exciting a base and demonizing the rest of the electorate, right? It was frighten and suppress, which was it's a rerun of 2016 strategy. It's just not clear that the 2020 playing field is going to look a lot like 2016.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few messages or a few lines that stood out to me as attempted messages. Early on in the speech, he says, "We took on a corrupt political establishment that looks down at you, my enemy." And it was basically a speech. There was so much grievance in the speech, as there always is. Trump always tries to cast himself as the victim. But what he tried to do in this speech is basically say what he's been saying for the last couple of years. My enemies, the people who've attacked me over the last 3 or 4 years, they're your enemies too. And this election is about whether it's not just a verdict on me and everything that I've done. It's a verdict on, as he said, the un-American conduct of those who tried to undermine our great democracy and undermine you. And so what he's trying to tell these people is, whatever you think about me, my opponents, who he decides to categorize as Democrats, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the media, the deep state, Robert Mueller, all these people, they are not just out to get Donald Trump. They are out to get you. And if they win, they will open the borders of this country to hordes of immigrants who will come in and, threaten your children and mooch off your tax dollars. And they will sell off America to China and to the highest bidder around the world. And what I will do is protect you, and my enemies are your enemies, and we have to beat them for 4 more years. That's sort of what he was getting at.
I see that. Like, that's definitely there, and you can include a lot of things in a speech that runs nearly 90 minutes. So he had the opportunity to touch on many topics and many messages. The thing that is, I think, it's an interesting tension within sort of the Trump political strategy, which is he does try at times to make it about his supporters, right?
Yeah.
Like, we are all in this together against these liberal elites who don't happen to be white. Like, that is definitely a message he has. And he tries to laud the movement, right? He calls it the greatest grassroots political movement in history or whatever. But that always feels like an afterthought, because 90% of it, if not more than that, is about Trump himself, things that have happened to Trump, things Trump did, problems only Trump can solve, and very little about the people who support him, who are theoretically benefiting from the policies that he may or may not have implemented, who are the ones who delivered this victory to him. I mean, the American voters, not the Russian troll farms. And like, the best thing he can say, like Obama would always say, this is not about me, it's about you. And would talk about our volunteers, our organizers, the people who, put on their marching shoes, to use all the Obama lines, and the role they played in changing America for the positive, pushing for civil rights, for workers' rights, women's rights, et cetera. But the best thing Trump can say about his movement is that they had in their infinite wisdom, they decided to support him. Right, he is still the hero of the story. Trump is amazingly, in alternating sentences, the hero and victim of every sentence he admits.
Yes, that is exactly right. And here's the big difference. He's been president already for a couple years, and he's not railing against a system of which he is outside, which is the major difference between 2016 and 2020. So in 2016, he can go out there and say, if your life isn't great right now, if you're upset about something, whatever it may be, whether you're not getting paid enough, whether you're pissed about immigrants, whatever grievance you may have in your life, it is the fault of the people who've been running the government, the establishment, the media, the Democrats, and if you send me in there, I'll fix all this. Now he's caught in a situation where all he wants to do is both tout his accomplishments, which he believes are accomplishments, but I think with most of the country believing that the country is moving in the wrong direction, and people believing that while the economy may be good, they don't necessarily credit Trump for the good economy, and they don't believe that Trump's economic policies favor them. They believe they favor the wealthy, and they believe that Republican economic policy favors the wealthy. He has that to contend with. And so he sort of alternates between, yeah, I've done all these great things, but by the way, if you don't elect me again, all these other people, all these enemies that we have will ruin everything. And what's missing there is, we have to finish the job on X. We have to do more on Y. I need 4 more years so I can do X, Y, and Z. There's, like you were saying, there is no recognition that anyone in this country still may have problems or concerns and want to fix something. Because, and that's indicative of his new campaign slogan, "Keep America Great." Right? He changed it. CAG. So he lost MAGA. Now he's got "Keep America Great," and I think it's a fairly. I'm not talking about his base now. We all fucking know his base is there for him. They're all fans. I don't want to hear from everyone being like, "Oh, it's not going to work. His base loves him." Yes, we fucking know that. They're 40% of the country. We get it. But for most people in this country, for swing voters, of which there are up for grabs voters out there, to tell them Trump's campaign is about keeping America great, it sounds like the job is finished. There's nothing left to do. Everything is wonderful. That's that. I think that's a danger.
Yeah, that's right. Generally when you are thinking through the